Welcome, everyone. This evening's meeting is beginning with a public hearing, and so the first item is to conduct a public hearing regarding the proposed adoption on second and final reading of an ordinance of the city which authorizes the design, acquisition, construction, and equipping of a sanitation department garage, the project, the leasing of certain real property situated in Elkins Corporation District, Randolph County, on the east side of Baxter Street between 11th Street and Chestnut Street in the city of Elkins, and all project improvements and appurtenances thereto by the city from the Elkins Municipal Building Commission. And 3, the issuance by the Elkins Municipal Building Commission of its lease revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $2 million for the purpose of financing the project and matters relating thereto. The hearing is now open. Is there anyone wishing to be heard? Hearing no one, the hearing is now closed. We'll begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. I'll now call roll. The meeting proper is now called to order. And I will now call the roll. Councilor Bross-Friganera.
Here.
Councilor Carroll. Here. Councilor Chenoweth. Here. Councilor Hinchman. Here. Councilor Kearns.
Here.
Councilor Lowther is absent. Councilor Parker.
Here.
Councilor Pliszka. Here. Councilor Severino.
Here.
Councilor Thompson.
Here.
And Mayor Marco is away this evening at the Upshur County Chamber of Commerce dinner. So we have a quorum. And I'll now ask if anyone is here for public comment. Hearing no one. The next item on the agenda is the proposed minutes for the meeting of February 15th, 2024. Is there a motion? Any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are accepted. In your correspondence notifications and recognitions, you have recent building permits. And next we have a presentation from Country Roads Transit. Laura Ward, if you'll come to the podium. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I come every year, of course. It's good to see some new faces, so some of you won't have heard my presentation before. So I'm from Country Roads Transit. Those of you who are new might not know that Country Roads Transit is a general public transportation service. We are based out of the Senior Center, administered by the Senior Center, but we are for the public. We are the only general public transportation system in the county, and we serve both Randolph and Upshur counties. So we have 2 different kinds of services in Randolph County. The first is a route van. We actually have 2 route vans. They leave the Senior Center. One goes north, one goes south. They go all around the area 7 times a day, all throughout Elkins. And I'm really excited that the current fiscal year that we're in, we are seeing a huge increase in the number of people who use that particular service, the route service. So we are on trend to see a 64% increase this fiscal year. Overall, last fiscal year, we saw a 13.7% increase in transit as a whole in Randolph County. The second service we have is a demand response service. So you call a day ahead of time, and we can take you anywhere in the county that you want to go. Usually folks who live not along the route or want to go to a destination that's not along the route. So we served in total last fiscal year 16,563 rides in Randolph County alone last fiscal year. And again, we are going to see an overall increase of about 9% this year if we remain on the current track. That is rides. I would love to be able to tell you that those are people who want a green alternative. That's not the choice here. Most of the people who take these rides, all of those 16,563 rides, were people who, in general, didn't have another way to get to where they were going. So that's people going to the doctor's office, to primary care appointments to keep themselves more well, to pharmacy appointments to make sure they get the prescription drugs they need. I want you to think for just a minute, and I have provided council in the past through our grant application some national numbers on why this is impactful, but I want you to think just locally of those trips. And if those people didn't get access to those primary care appointments or to get to the pharmacy, and they waited until their health was an emergency situation, how much more would that cost our community? Not even to mention the impact on those particular people who are our neighbors. It's also rides to the senior center for lunch and socialization and to play bridge. And even though that sounds sort of contrite to some people, if that's your source of socialization, that also is keeping everyone a little more healthy. It's also to the bank and to the restaurant and to the hairdresser, all of which live in your city limits, all of which you guys serve those folks who live within your city limits. So I am super excited because this is the first year I could come here and say this. Every year I come and I say, it's one thing for me to tell you stories of the people who ride transit. It's another thing for you to get on a van with them and ride and sit next to the people whose life it impacts and let them tell you their stories, because how much better is that than listening to me? And for the first year, I'm super excited to say that one of your fellow council people did that, so thank you very much, Nancy, who came and rode transit last year, close after my presentation. And so you'll be able to ask her about that, I'm sure, but we are very happy to see that, and the invitation stands. I will pay your fare. I want you to come. You guys are doing a really great thing to invest in your community. You are. And I want you to hear not just thank you from me, who comes every year. I want you to hear thanks from the people who ride the service, whose lives you're impacting every day. We have put in our application for continued funding, and I hope you'll consider that. I'll remind you that we are a 50-50 match program. And that means that every dollar you invest is $2 worth of service. Every dollar you invest, we can leverage one federal dollar for. Our estimated budget for next year is $710,000. So I have to raise half of that. And we're going to do it because this is important, and it's important for folks to get to where they're going. I would be remiss if I didn't mention our newest service, which is part of the demand response service, but is a service that goes to Clarksburg area medical centers. We started that a few years ago. We are tickled to death with that. It is going to increase, we're on trend to increase 26% this fiscal year, that service. So that started as an idea because we had veterans that the volunteer van service they had was sort of not in good shape at that point. The van wasn't in good shape. They couldn't get volunteers. So we had veterans coming to us and saying, we can't get to Clarksburg to the VA. That should never, ever be the case in a community like ours. So that's got the idea rolling. And then we had a lot of people saying, well, if you're going to go to the VA, my doctor referred me to a specialist in Clarksburg, and I can't get to them. How about, could you go there too? And so we are. It's been extremely impactful. You can ride on that if you want to. You want to hear some stories, spend an hour in a van with those guys. And we're happy that that's growing. And we continue to try to meet where we can. Again, funding makes us have to put those dollars where we make the biggest impact, right? I'd love to be able to say, and we say this every year, to expand hours to evenings and weekends. We're expanding where we can expand, and that VA route, that Clarksburg area medical route, is one example of that. So I'd be happy, I don't want to take up a ton of your time, but I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Does any?
I don't have a question, but I would like to echo what she said about taking a ride on one of the buses. Marilyn and I did that last year, or maybe it was a year and a half ago, and it was really important just to also hear from the bus driver, who was just the nicest guy. And for a lot of these people who ride, this is a good friend. You know, it's a familiar face to them. We were able to talk to a few of the drivers, and I think as a city we need to recognize the importance, especially these days, for public transportation. It's one of the top reasons that people not only decide to move here, but stay here, because if you're a senior citizen and you can't drive anymore, and you don't have access to some way to get to those important appointments that you have, you're going to have to move somewhere else. And so I think in the long term, supporting public transportation like this is really important. And I will also comment, recently, there's also another end of this age spectrum. There's a lot of needs to transport young people to tutoring opportunities, hands-on experiences. And as all of you know, sometimes our public Board of Ed transportation can't fulfill those needs. And so we had a situation where we called out to Country Roads, and they were more than helpful to give us a proposal for an opportunity. So there's lots of different ways that this bus service is really making a positive impact on all generations in our city. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
I just had a comment and a quick question. So one, thank you. I'm a big fan of the service. I think it does mean a lot. And I have a lot of students who are, 18 or 19 trying to enter the workforce who don't have an automobile yet. They don't have gainful income to do that. And I think it's a damn shame normally that you need a car to operate in society. So for those students that I've had that can now get to their job, can, really start their life, that matters a lot. So I've got two questions. So where do you think this increase in ridership is coming from? What demographic? What do you think is pushing that? Because that's a fairly significant increase.
Right, it is. And I, we were seeing increases, and then COVID, like it shut everything else down, really dropped our ridership. So I think part of that increase is that coming back, but I also think part of it is us finally, after 17 years of service, getting the word out there that you don't have to be a senior citizen to ride. It's us taking advantage of the kind of opportunities that Nancy spoke about that's doesn't exactly fit what we're doing now, but could we tweak things and make that work? And we really have a great set of employees now who are trying to think outside the box about how to meet those needs without going over budget. And so we're just getting more creative, I think. I think it's both of those things.
And then, so in a perfect world, what does this service look like?
In a perfect world,
Yeah.
we have extended evening and weekend service. In a perfect world, I have all the workforce I need to accommodate that, and all the funding I need to accommodate that. It's really at this point about money. Expansions of services just cost money. We're having a struggle right now with the Division of Public Transit in Charleston can't get replacement vehicles. So we're spending a lot more on repairing the vehicles we have that are older than because we can't get the replacement vehicles. We are 4 years behind on replacement vehicles at this point. So that's also a struggle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just want to also thank you as well. I think a lot of people in our community don't even realize necessarily just what an asset this could be. And I always try to let people know, I'm like, hey, we have this option. And people are like, oh, really? We have that? I'm like, yeah, and it's really cheap. So
Yes, it is.
it's definitely an asset to our community. I just have a question, though. How much are the fares for, like, the loops? And I'm assuming there's a different fare maybe for, like, the call ahead the day before. Is there a different fare? What are the fares?
So the route vans are $1.25 each time you get on the van. So for a round trip, if you're just going one place and coming back, that would be a $2.50 round fare. And the demand response service is twice that, so it's $2.50 each way.
And what about is the VA
Yeah.
or the Clarksburg area, is that a different?
Yes, for veterans, that's a $15 fare, and for non-veterans, that's a $25 fare. It's still less than you would pay in gas.
Is that just a 21, or is it 20 round trip?
25 round trip.
Okay,
Yep.
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Laura.
Sure. Thank you for letting me come and give a report, and thank you again for your support of transit. We appreciate you.
Laura, just real quick, we may have a few people watching at home. What's the website that people can go to learn about the fares or routes or things?
So countryroadstransit.com.
Countryroadstransit.com.
I also think there's a link on the city website
Okay, yeah.
that links to transit.
And maybe Jeremy can throw that in the comments on our stream.
Yeah,
All
thank
right,
you.
if there's no other questions, thank you very much. Moving on to counselor reports. Counselor Parker.
No report this evening.
Counselor Bros Friganera.
The tree board met last week, and we are continuing to work on this horrific grant that has now been delayed due to federal regulations increases. The previous grant deadline was the end of December, and now it's been pushed to June. And what that means is that it's had a horrible impact on our purchase of trees. Normally, trees are put in the ground in April, and so now we're having to really deal with that cost change. You'll be hearing more about that. Landmarks met last week or 2 weeks ago, and they have a lot of plans on increasing outreach in the way of perhaps doing magical history tours and and updating their website and some of their publications. Municipal Properties will be meeting this Monday at 11. Some of the topics are downtown parking, SHPO grant for the Cump House, and updates on many projects that we are involved in. That's it. Thank you.
Counselor Pliszka.
No report.
Counselor Hinchman.
Yes, sir. Finance has had 2 special call meetings. First one, we went over the outside contributions and had discussions on the new fire truck. Second one, we're working on the main budget, and we approved the fire trucks. I don't remember exact 4.9%, and we also approved the I don't know if the sewer, but I don't know how to say that. We got to take out part of a sewer over on Barron and 11th Avenue, and we will be meeting next Monday at 1.
Thank you. Counselor Chenoweth.
Personnel Committee met earlier this week. We took up 2 items. Both of those items are on the agenda. Resolution 1732, dealing with the funding of the health savings accounts that we recently approved for the employees, and recommending the reappointment of the city attorney, Ms. Roberts. Can answer any questions. We take up those resolutions. Thanks.
Thank you. Counselor Kearns.
No report. Thank you.
Counselor Severino.
No report.
Counselor Carroll.
No report.
And Counselor Thompson.
No report.
Moving on to staff reports. Did you move? Who wants to go first? Chief Bennett. We'll have Wes go first. Chief Water Operator Wes Lambert. What,
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see everyone again. Been a few months. I wasn't able to make it last month, but I'm glad to be here in front of you again. Everything's been rolling pretty smooth for the most part with the water department. Glad to see the weather kind of turn. Of course, we've still got a couple months. You know, anything could happen with winter, but we're glad to see the sun shining anyway. This week's been pretty busy. We got hit with a couple leaks, one right off the bat. Over on 10th Street and Henry, tractor and trailer backed over one of our fire hydrants and done quite a bit of damage. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get any video surveillance of that. Some of the neighbors had a video surveillance, but it got rewritten over, so we weren't able to get that. And we also had a second leak this week over behind the alley at CJ Maggie's. The crew was able to fix that fairly quickly. I do want to thank the public for their patience with everything. I know we've had 2 bull water advisories out this week, and we've had, a couple outages. The one over on 10th Street was definitely extensive. We repaired the line once and turned the water back on, and about an hour later, the line busted further out in the road. It was damaged out further than what we expected, so the outage was longer, and we just really appreciate everyone's patience on that and their support. We actually had some citizens come down and thank us for our hard work, and we appreciate that. That makes it worthwhile. Last week, 2 of my employees attended a backflow certification course in Ripley, West Virginia, and I'm proud to say that they passed that course and are now certified to test backflow preventers in the state of West Virginia. Also, tomorrow morning, I have 2 employees that will be taking their driving portion of their CDLs. So say a little prayer for them, wish them good luck. They're really looking forward to that. They've been practicing a lot in the tractor and trailer here lately. So I do want to say over the past 12 months that I've seen a huge increase in morale within the water department and over the whole city, really. I do want to thank the mayor, council, the water board, and the various staff members that's had a part in that. Really, in my opinion, it's a 180 from what it used to be. You guys have set the path forward for all these various departments, and we really appreciate it. We're all looking forward to see, where the future holds in working for the city of Elkins, and we appreciate every one of you. And that's all I have for this evening. Any questions?
real quick, Wes, I just, since you mentioned boil water advisories,
Yeah.
and sometimes people have questions about those, I think sometimes people assume because we issue that, there's been some kind of contamination. Can you give the real answer about that?
Sure, yeah. So we issue the boil water advisories mainly out of just a precaution. It's not that we think there's contamination, but we can't say 100% certainty without doing lab tests on that water. So we do a precaution, I consider it a precautionary boil water advisory, and we take that water to an independent lab and have it tested for bacteria. And when it comes back, we lift the boil water. We just want to, it's kind of one of those things that's better safe than sorry. And of course, the state of West Virginia, they regulate that pretty heavy too, and that's some of their regulations, that we have to do a precautionary boil water. So,
Absolutely, thanks.
you're welcome.
Anyone have any other questions? All right, thank you. Chief Bennett.
Good evening, everybody. In February, Elkins Police Department responded to 370 calls for service. Out of that, we generated 12 cases and 10 arrests. Some of the other things that we have going on, last week we hired a parking enforcement officer, so we've got that back going. It's a retired chief from Elkins Police Department that came back to work, which is honestly really cool. He's maintained his law enforcement officer certification as well, so not only is he acting as parking enforcement, but he's also doing traffic enforcement as well. So when he's not out checking for parking violations, that's a full-time traffic officer we have out doing more patrols. So that's really beneficial to us. I think we'll really see some good things come from that. Last week, I got the 3 bids for the camera system. We put that out to bid. It was closed on Friday. We've got 3 bids. I'm currently reviewing them and getting ready to start doing interviews with some of the companies that bid on that. So we're going to see movement on that pretty soon. We still have 2 open slots. We're testing on March the 30th. I looked a couple days ago. We've got 20 applications so far, and the applicant list looks really good. So I'm very optimistic that those 2 slots will be filled during this testing cycle. And with any luck, we will get both of them. We'll either get somebody certified or get both of them through the academy and be at full staff for the first time in a very long time, which would be really nice. We have 1 officer at the academy right now. He's getting ready to finish his 2nd week. So far, so good there. So 3.5 more months, and we'll have that officer back and start in the field training program. That's all I have, unless anybody has questions for me.
Who is the new traffic, or the new parking enforcement officer? What's his name?
Retired Chief Steve Richards.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Operations Manager Mike Kessaker.
Good evening. First thing I'd like to say is I want to thank everyone that works in City Hall for their cooperation when we had the rolling power outages, putting the new generator in place. I'm pleased to announce that the generator is fully operational and functioning. It runs every Wednesday morning, a brief cycle just to make sure it runs correctly. But if we ever have a power outage from a storm or any other reason, City Hall will be able to function now without any delay. There may be a 10-second period where you will not have power, but then we'll kick on. So the whole system's operating the way it was designed, so that's good news. We had our pre-bid meeting for the HVAC project. Surprisingly, we had a very good turnout, which we are keeping our fingers crossed will result in driving the cost down due to competition. Fingers crossed. We'll hope for the best. We're cautiously optimistic. The bid opening will be March the 27th, and we'll know more about that HVAC project and how we can move forward at that point. I will be meeting with the street supervisor in the very near future to go over the paving project for the paving season, which is coming up upon us pretty quick. Once we know that, we'll get notification out so people can plan accordingly as to where we'll be doing our paving project this year. Our code enforcement officer is attending a conference for code enforcement officers in Flatwoods. So I don't have anything from her, but rest assured she's doing a tremendous job and staying on top of things. And these are just things for her continuing education and to keep her up to speed on different changes that may be coming down the line that we would have to act upon. In the sanitation department, we've hired 2 new employees. One was very well qualified, already possessed the CDL license that was required. So we have 2 quality employees that are in the sanitation department now that are filling in 2 vacancies we had there. And we're hoping we have 1 vacancy in the street department filled. We'll know that here in the very near future. To end my report on a little bit of a lighter note, some of you are probably aware that I was flying solo for the last 2 weeks up on the 3rd floor. Did not burn the building down like my staff thought I may do, but I just want to personally tell you that the staff on the 3rd floor, Melody and Shanna, are dedicated employees that do a tremendous job, willing to take calls, forward calls on their cell phone while they're recovering from something or while they're helping someone recover from something, working from home, coming in for a few hours to help out. I couldn't do any part of my job without what they do up there. And I just can't thank them enough for everything they've done over the last 2 weeks to make sure the wheels didn't fall off while they were gone. So I appreciate all they do. We're moving forward on a lot of projects, and if anybody's got any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Sir.
Mr. Kessiker, would you like to share an update on the print crafters demo and the second property down toward Kroger that is now being worked on?
Well, with Print Crafters, that project is nearing completion. The other project, I don't have an update for you at this time. Like I say, I haven't had a lot of communication with Jessie over the past few days because she's been gone, but I will shoot you an email and get you that information.
Yeah, I just didn't want to steal your thunder. I thought Jesse did a really good job in keeping an eye on things at the Print Crafters building. And,
Absolutely did.
And having a good rapport with the contractor.
Yes, yeah, she works really well with the contractor that's on site, so it seems to be pretty seamless. There's no bumps between her and the contractor, which works out really well on the city's behalf.
The contractor was very good. That was a tricky demolition.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely was. There were some things that we got into there that we didn't realize we were getting into, but my hat's off to the crew that did the job, and again, Jesse was on top of it and did a fantastic job overseeing that project.
And the asbestos abatement firm is working down on the one by Kroger.
Yes.
And it appears to me that they're doing a very careful job. And it was good to see the progress on that. I expect, once that abatement is done, it's going to come down fast.
Right. Usually that is one of the more lengthy aspects of the projects is the inspection, the abatement, the testing of the asbestos. So that's usually one of the most time-consuming portions of what we do.
Thank you, sir.
Quite welcome.
Do we have any update on the second, no?
You mean whether or not the city, no, the city
No.
did not get funds the second time around. I think they're a goal, well, they still have some to dish out.
There are some funds
Yeah.
left, but they have not hinted as to where they're going to go at this
Right.
time. So we have no information on that. We know we're in, and correct me if I'm wrong, we know we're in their good graces. They
Yeah.
love how we handle things.
Absolutely.
Which I think bodes well for us. However, no one has committed anything to us to move forward.
And if you look at the list of the people, the communities that got funding the second time, they really tried to reach out to communities that didn't get any last time.
Absolutely.
So,
Yes. Yeah.
there were 21 last year, or I guess it was actually the year before when the city got it. And so I think they wanted to look at some other communities that didn't get any the first go-round. So, but they still have money left. I forget how much they had this time. It was more than they had the first time when we were given the money then. So I think what they're trying to do is kind of regroup about it. And,
Yes.
And I think there might be a chance that.
Well, as with any first-time project, there's things you have to iron out, and you learn from your experiences, your mistakes. Not necessarily mistakes, but you just learn as you're growing with it. And I think as we move forward,
I think there's still a chance that we might.
absolutely. Yeah, I don't want to say yes, we're going to get it, but I think there is a chance, and a lot of that's based on how well we did with this first round. I really think that that's a feather in our cap going forward.
Yeah, I mean, every aspect of it, from the submission of the permission, then the SHPO part of it, and, the awarding, putting out the bids and the awards and all of that. I mean, that all went really well, and I think they're very pleased with how that went. So I just think I don't think it had anything to do with whether we did it the right or wrong way the first go. I think they just were looking at other communities.
And I think
Because there's a much bigger list this time, too.
Yes.
I forget how many more, but
Yes.
it's more than 21.
And one of the keys, too, during the whole process that I thought the city should be proud about was there was never a situation where DEP or another entity was waiting on something from us. We always seemed to stay one step ahead, and oftentimes we were submitting things, waiting on things to get back to us so we could proceed forward. So again, little things like that add up, and I think that will bode well for us as we move into the future with these projects.
But, it was a lot of buildings that needed to come down that the city been looking at, and the $50,000 that the city put aside in the budget for, I'm not sure how many years total it was, Tracy probably remembers, you didn't have to do that.
Right.
So those revenues could be used for something else.
And these last two buildings are the last on
That's
on
it.
this
That's
year's
it.
list.
We're out of money.
We have spent our allocation.
Right,
So,
right.
yes.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you.
City Treasurer Tracy Judy.
Good evening. In your packet, there was a couple of different things. I provided some information regarding the migration to the cloud with our software. I can honestly say that went much better than what I anticipated, not being an IT person, but it was very smooth. Some small bugs were worked out, but had a project manager on our software side who I was in communication with. He was at my beck and call, basically. So all of that is going well. Also in your packet, and as well on your desk, I've handed out our fiscal year 23 audit. And I'm pleased to say that we have had another unmodified audit, which is good news for potential for loans, grants, et cetera. Our insurance company will be coming in on April the 9th, and we'll be going around with administrative officers, taking a look at all city properties to make sure they're valued correctly and any other questions they may have. So we've set that up with all the admin officers. Today we presented a balanced budget to finance for review, so we're pleased and about that, and I'm grateful to the admin officers who have worked the last several weeks on their own budgets, coming together and discussing that. It was greatly appreciated. And I think that's all I have. Just a lot going on. It's that time of year. Anybody have any questions? Okay,
May I make an observation?
sure.
I mean, you go right by the audit result, and I just really wanted to underline it. Audits seem murky and mysterious to people. It really matters that the city has now had an unbroken streak of unmodified opinions, meaning the good opinion, since 2013. If you look at the letter in the packet, that wasn't the case before that year. There was some other findings in previous years. So this is starting to just seem normal or expected, but it should not be taken for granted. It takes careful attention to detail every day, especially in Tracy's department and then in other departments as well. And I really would suggest consider the opposite case. If we weren't getting that, what that does for reputation, for morale, much less, even the concrete effects on things like grants and things like that. I mean, this is basically, that department getting a top grade for its year's worth of work. So I just really wanted to emphasize how important that is.
Thank you. Any other questions or anything? All right, thank you.
Fire Chief Steve Himes.
Good evening. I may not be brief. I'll give you a fair warning. So, monthly statistics for February, we ran 74 calls in February, which brought our year-to-date total to 163. It's been extremely busy the last 2 months since the first of the year. We're 36% ahead of last year. I do not like that. We're on pace to run over 1,000 calls, but the bottom will fall out of it, I hope. As Councilor Hinchman alluded to, Ordinance 1734 in your packet, it's the financing package for the fire engine. It went to graphics on Tuesday. According to the production schedule, completion date of the 14th. We will be going up on the 27th for final and go over it with a fine-tooth comb and the several-page component report to make sure that it was built exactly as to how we specified it some 28 or 29 months ago. So that'll be a long day, and it'll then go to the dealer for a couple weeks to get some custom mounting that the volunteer organization's going to be paying for. And it's a lot easier when they have bins and bins and bins of the right bracket and the right bolt and nice drill bits and somebody that can take their time and not get in a hurry. So we'll get a lot of that stuff mounted prior to it coming home. I anticipate probably a day or two of in-service training because of some different features that we have never had before. And then getting radio installed and rack and hose, and it'll be ready to go. The last thing on my agenda, daylight savings times this weekend. So everybody's going to lose an hour's sleep. And when you do that, check the battery in your smoke alarm. That's been something that's been stressed for years and years and years. And I was thinking about it this week, and I thought, Friday morning, I'm going to call Jeremy and see if he'll blast out a post for me, reminding people at almost the last possible minute, so it's fresh in their mind. And what's Jeremy do? Call me today. So thank you, Jeremy, because since Jeremy's post, it speaks to the importance of his position as well. I've gotten 2 emails in the last 3 hours for smoke alarm installs. You know, this is something that really bothers me because we've killed 11 people in the state of West Virginia in fires since January 1st. And many of those cite as one contributing factor the lack of smoke alarm. And everybody thinks that it won't happen here. It won't happen in small town Elkins. Well, it's happened in Craigsville. It's happened in Tyler County. It's happened not in major municipalities this year, okay? And it has happened in this city, all right? So if me and my guys don't zip another body bag anytime soon, it's perfectly fine with us. So please, if you're watching or you're listening or you're here and you need a smoke alarm, you don't have one, call. Check your battery. If you don't have a battery, call me and I'll come buy you one. And that's all I have. If anybody has any questions.
I do. When you said you had a huge increase in the number of calls, do you have that, is there any kind of analysis between whether there's city limits or first response, or is it pretty much over the whole?
When I break it down by the month, I usually just break down the total volume, but I can break it down by 4 different categories, whether it was in the city or in our first due or mutual aid to another fire department in the county or mutual aid out of the county. That's the 4 geographical locations, if you will, that we track that data. But I can pull that for any time period you would like to know.
I think with this increase, it would be interesting to see, you know, especially if it was first response or mutual aid, you know, when we're talking about annexation and things along those lines, it's, I think, significant to see if that is one of the big growth areas.
It's kind of a dynamic thing, Nancy, because by call type, and there's so many contributing factors because it's not work that we schedule, you know? So I can tell you that while our call volume as a whole has remained somewhat level over the past several years, our mutual aid requests tend to ebb and flow the same way. Everybody has a hard time getting people, and that has, and we're not immune to that. So we get called to help sometimes, but when someone goes through that that downturn in call volume, so do those requests for help. But yeah, I can pull it by hour of the day of the week, where we're going. There's 500 and some different types of incident codes in the info system, and I can give you anything you want to know. Okay, sure. No problem. Anybody else? Okay, thank y'all.
Thank you, Chief. I guess that makes it my turn. Report from the clerk's office. I know I still owe you an updated strategic plan draft. I've been busy this month with the budget and some other things, one of which is preparing a new round of applications for congressionally directed spending. These are, what are also referred to as earmarks. It's kind of this new program where you get, there's open applications through your two senators' offices to apply for money in various lines of the federal budget with all sorts of requirements depending on which account your project fits with. But we did have a call with Senator Manchin's staff yesterday and got some feedback on how to make our applications stronger. And so we'll tee that up and do our best with that once again. Jeremy has been proceeding with the setup process for WENS, the new mass notification system council approved last fall. It looks like we're just about ready to roll out a registration page, and we can start promoting it. To start with, we'll be importing our current list of contacts from Nixle. So if anyone is watching, if they're already getting city text messages, text alerts, they'll be included in the new list. And also the email addresses that get our newsletter are going to get pulled into. But we're also going to just be trying to obviously drive new signups with advertising and promotions. And that's going to be a lot easier to do than with Nixle. Speaking of the budget, just in terms of steps that are coming up, as Councilor Hinchman mentioned, there'll be another meeting of the Finance Committee on Monday, be an opportunity to do some additional work on the budget then. And it just kind of depends what the committee feels is necessary at that point. But it does seem like there's not going to be any issue having a well-developed general fund budget for council at the meeting of March 21st. And then if for some reason an additional council meeting were needed, the deadline is basically the following Wednesday, March 27th, would be kind of the last day when your treasurer would still have time to enter the results. So, but it seems as though it's comfortable, plenty of time between now and that meeting to fine-tune things. And I already made my comment about the audit, so that's all I've got. Anyone have any questions for me?
Well, it's for both. So the budget actually has to be submitted on what date to the state?
They want it by the 28th, so a meeting on the 27th would kind of be the last comfortable day because there's a lot of entry into the big workbook and whatnot, so we wouldn't want to be doing that on the last day. So, sure thing. Any other questions? Nope. All right, moving down in our agenda to approval of vendor invoice payments. Vendor invoices being presented for approval from February 12th through March 1st. Is there a motion?
So moved, sir.
Any comments or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Under new business, Ordinance 320 is being withdrawn from the agenda tonight. We missed a required legal ad publication, so we just have to move that and its associated hearing to a later meeting. I know it's kind of confusing because we have big, long paragraphs of text about bonds, and one of them says sanitation, and one of them says sanitary. So the one that's being pulled is the one that's for the wastewater treatment plant garage sewer revenue bonds. But moving down to Ordinance 321, I think I'll just point out we have Eli Tilley from Steptoe and Johnson in the audience representing bond counsel for this matter. I guess if anyone has any questions, what lies ahead here is the final reading of an ordinance that essentially authorizes the building commission to issue bonds, and we can go into more of that if you want. And then it'll be followed by a supplemental resolution that includes fills in some of the blanks about who will be issuing or who the financial institution is that will receive those bonds, and some other details. So if you would like to ask any questions about any of that, I could ask Mr. Tilley to come up to the podium, and if not, we could continue. Anyone want to hear from?
Go for it.
I'm sorry, something else on another planet.
That's okay. Mr. Tilley, why don't you
All
come
right,
up to the podium and just
Yeah, I
field
had
any-
questions on how this all works, like when you put them on sale, when is that money accessible, and that type of thing.
Good evening. How's everyone doing tonight? So the way this works is the building commission owns the property where the sanitation garage is going to go. The city is approving the building commission to pull out these bonds. The money will actually be available on the closing date. As you've seen, this is the second reading of the bond ordinance. The building commission actually had 3 readings of their bond ordinance. We try to get everything lined up. That's why it's not to exceed $2 million, because when we get the bank involved, everything starts moving pretty rapidly. So we could be closing this by March 15th. Hopefully that answers your question.
Well, let's go ahead and consider Ordinance 321. To consider for adoption on second and final reading, an ordinance of the city which authorizes, 1, the design, acquisition, construction, and equipping of a sanitation department garage, the project. 2, the leasing of certain real property situated in Elkins Corporation District, Randolph County, on the east side of Baxter Street between 11th Street and Chestnut Street in the city of Elkins, and all project improvements and appurtenances thereto by the city from the Elkins Municipal Building Commission. And 3, the issuance by the Elkins Municipal Building Commission of its lease revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $2 million for the purpose of financing the project and matters relating thereto. This is the second and final reading. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Any questions or discussions about Ordinance 321? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The ordinance is accepted. Next is Resolution 1730, and I'll read the title. Supplemental Resolution Approving Terms of the Lease Revenue Bonds, Series 2024, Sanitation Department Garage of the Elkins Municipal Building Commission, the issuer, approving the sale and delivery of such bonds by issuer to Ohio Valley Bank, approving the forms and authorizing the execution and delivery of an agreement and lease and other documents, and approving other matters with respect to such bonds. Is there a motion? Moved by Councilor Chenoweth. Are there any questions or discussions about Resolution 1730? And again, this fills in the blanks, selects a particular bank, and specifies various details about the nature of the relationship between council and the building commission on this matter. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? And Resolution 1730 is approved. Thank you, Mr. Tilley. We're going to move the update on the Whitmer water system to the end of the meeting at the request of the city attorney and chief water operator. So we'll move to Ordinance 322, an ordinance of the Common Council of Elkins, West Virginia, amending sections of City Code, Chapter 152, zoning, regarding sign regulations. Final reading. Is there a motion? Moved. Any questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Ordinance 323, an ordinance of the Common Council of Elkins, West Virginia, eliminating sections of City Code, Chapter 112, solicitors and canvassers. Final reading. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Ordinance 324, amending Elkins City Code, Section 3102, concerning council meetings, first of two readings. Is there a motion? Moved by Severino?
Yes.
All
Just
right.
having button issues.
And the new text is included in your packets. This is just a little section of city code that's always been there that specifies some details about council meetings, time of meeting, and certain other rules about notifications, special meetings, special called meetings. The main thing that jumped out at me about this section was that for the longest time it has said that council is supposed to be meeting at 8 o'clock, not 7 o'clock. And then when I looked a little closer, I just saw some opportunities to modernize the language. It doesn't really change anything substantive other than getting the time correct. So that's the thrust of that. But it's just a couple paragraph change that's in
So
your
is that
packets.
the only change is like from 8 to 7, essentially? I mean, aside from, like,
What's that?
aside from like, you said a couple paragraphs, but you said the major change was from like 8 p.m. to 7 p.m.?
Yeah, that's the most substantive change. I cleaned up some language that used to require, there used to be a time for you newer people on council, there used to be a time before the modern agenda platform that we're using when the practice was to create paper council packets, and those were actually then delivered to the council members the night before by the police department. And so there were some requirements about the police chief serving notice in certain situations and things like that that just didn't seem to fit with the way we do it now.
I can only imagine what my neighbors would think if the chief pulled up in my house in a cop car.
I actually, when I was first appointed clerk, I had no idea of that custom, and a cop came to my house to drop off a packet, like I'd been there for a day or something, and it was surprising. But anyway, so it just cleans up, it kind of gets less specific about the notification, and it essentially says, if there's going to be a special called meeting, which this law permits the mayor alone or 3 council members together can order a meeting of council, but a notification has to go out fairly to everyone involved. It basically requires that the same methods be used as for a regular meeting unless special circumstances require some additional measures or something like that. And I thought it was better to keep that non-specific, but that's kind of the import of that change.
And I think that paragraph, something about the remote meetings,
yeah.
because that wasn't something that was contemplated, but certainly during COVID, that became a factor. And
Yeah, so I forgot that. That's a new paragraph about remote meetings. The Ethics Commission, of course, said that was okay. This council did have remote meetings during COVID. I went ahead and added that to this section so that it's official that it is an option that exists for you to hold a remote meeting. You have to follow public access requirements. And then under special circumstances, if one member had to call in, as long as they could be heard by the public, if that were vital to achieve quorum with something important, you'd have that option, but it does say it's supposed to be under unusual circumstances or special circumstances. So anyway, any other questions?
No, but my son thought that was the coolest thing ever to have the police come and deliver the packet.
It was a golden era we all remember fondly. If there are no more questions about Ordinance 324, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ordinance passes on first reading. Ordinance 325, and actually I'll just tee up, the next 2 ordinances are just because of a change in state law. These 2 bodies, the Board of Zoning Appeals and the Planning Commission, used to be required to meet quarterly. State law bumped that down to just twice a year unless they have reason to meet more often. So it just seemed to make sense to match that. So that's the only change that these make. So ordinance 325 amends the meeting frequency for the Board of Zoning Appeals. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And then ordinance 326 amends meeting frequency for the Planning Commission. Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Severino moves. Any questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Resolution 1731, authorizing conditions of lease and addendum and maintenance agreement between Hart Office Solutions and the City of Elkins for the Office of the Executive Secretary. This is just a replacement copier, and amazingly, the monthly cost is now going to be slightly less than it currently is, so this move actually saves money. Is there a motion? Moved. Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Resolution 1732, fiscal year 2025 funding of PEIA Plan C health savings accounts. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'm guessing people want a caption to this. This action will simply, you already have selected Plan C, the high deductible plan, as your base plan. You've already previously selected an administrator or an administrator for these health savings accounts. And then it's just up to the city what frequency or when these accounts will be funded. The council decision was to place the full deductible amount in these accounts for the high deductible plan. And the question was, would this be funded at the right away, such as at the beginning of the fiscal year for current employees, or if it would be parceled out over months? And the thinking was that in this first year, to go ahead and do the front loading, to do a lump sum deposit at the beginning of the fiscal year, prorated for employees who start later in the year, simply because of the quite high medication costs that some people do have to come up with on a regular basis, and they could be kind of left in the lurch, shifting from their current plan to this one without that funding in place. And that's the import of this. But everyone can rest assured or should understand that this, along with things like how much of the deductible the city can afford to contribute, how much of future PEIA increases the city will absorb, all these things will be examined year by year. So this is just a plan year decision for fiscal year 2025. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1733, reappointment of Geraldine Roberts as city attorney for another one-year term. Is there a motion? Chenoweth moves. Any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Resolution 1734, created today after the Finance Committee meeting, and you have it in paper form in front of you. This selects the financing for the 2023 Sutphen custom pumper that Chief Himes was just describing. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Hinchman moves. Is there any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And Resolution 1735, and this would authorize the use of financial stabilization account funds for the $147,000 cost to relocate the sewer line that is under the city lot near 11th and Barron Avenue, with a goal of making that city-owned lot more attractive to a private purchaser and try to get a better use out of it than a gravel lot. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And finally, we have, as requested to be moved to the end of the agenda, the update on the Whitmer water system. And it's been recommended that this be discussed in executive session under the attorney-client consultation exemption. Is there a motion to enter executive session? Chenoweth moves. Any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Council is entering executive session at 8:06 p.m. with all right.